Hello and welcome to Matchday 25 of Championship Predictions from the Odds Book Podcast. I'm Craig Savage, and with me as always is Daniel Cody and Charlie Betts. Let's have a quick recap of Matchday 24, where there were 4 perfect scores between all three of us. Daniel Cody got the 2 with Blackburn versus Stoke, which ended 1-1, and Watford versus Huddersfield, which ended 2-0 to Watford. Charlie got a perfect score for Barnsley versus Swansea, which was the late game. He was so happy with that. And I got a perfect score for Cardiff versus Norwich, which ended 2-1 to Norwich. So overall, Daniel Cody wins Matchday 24 for the first time since Matchday 19 with 8 to my 6 to Charlie Betts' 5. So overall in the table, I am now on 165 with 29 perfect scores. Daniel Cody creeps up to 157 with 24 perfect scores. And Charlie's on 134 with 20 perfect scores now. He breaks into the 20 zone on perfect scores. So let's start off this midweek edition of Matchday 25 with Derby County versus Bournemouth. Charlie, I'm going to start with you for Derby. Wayne Rooney, first of all, game in charge, and it started off with defeat.
It did. I don't know. See, the thing is, if you look at the stats, obviously, you can only go by highlights on Quest and stuff like that. But if you look at the stats as well, Derby have gone back a step in the sense they've had more possession of the ball and lost the game. And actually, they were performing better in more recent weeks when they probably surrendered a bit of the possession, but then were a bit quicker on the counter. So I don't know. I think it's just purely bad luck, bad timing. How Rotherham got an away win, I mean, I've even said on the last episode, I think that they can't buy an away win at the minute, and yet they did. So I wouldn't push the panic button yet. He's got too many good pros there for them to have suddenly just settled because he's now permanent manager. I mean, I can't imagine much would have changed, could it? So I'm putting it down to a blip. However, in terms of this game against Bournemouth, you two will be better qualified to obviously comment on Bournemouth in a minute because you watched the game. But Bournemouth away from home are not the greatest either. Only won 2 in the last 5. I did say about Luton getting a result against Bournemouth. I should have backed myself. Oh, do I bottle it? No, 1-1. Wayne Rooney's going to come back with a plum. He's going to go more defensive, give away the ball, 1-1.
Codes, Charlie said, obviously we both watched the game. There was a red card for Bournemouth, Jefferson Lerma in the 26th minute for a serious foul play, violent conduct. I don't know. I don't know what the referee saw on it. But first of all, do you think it was a red card?
No, it was harsh. I looked at it immediately and went, that's a yellow card for me. So it was not an intent. But Bournemouth, they weren't great, but obviously it's hard to judge when they've played over an hour of 10 men. They're still very much in the top 6, very much in the promotion race. Derby's starting to be concerned again. That's 3 games without a goal if you include the Chorley Cup tie, which I suppose was an under-23 team, wasn't it? But they've got the worst home record in the league still. You did allude to the fact in the episode on Saturday about Derby's manager, Wayne Rooney, that the honeymoon period might be over with the permanent appointment. And so far, you could be right. You could have an argument for it. So for me, I can only see one of 2 scores. I was going to say 1-1, which Charlie had gone for, but I'm now going to creep to a Bournemouth away win. They've drawn half their away games this season, but they've won most of the rest. So Bournemouth are going to nick it 1-0, not a thriller.
Bournemouth played similar to how they were before Eddie Howe. They had a lot of the ball, a lot of possession, but they didn't really... They had 3 chances, I'll say, the whole game against Luton. Suga saved one the first off from King, and then Potts saved one off the line, and then Suga saved it, I think, from Raquelme. Other than that, they just passed the ball around, and it's all good with possession, but you've got to do something with the possession. Yeah, I didn't think it was red card either, but I do think, 1, Jefferson Lerma's red card will get overturned, and 2, I think they'll win this game by 2-0. Up next, it's Reading versus Coventry at the Matchday. These 2 teams didn't play the weekend, Coast.
They didn't. I actually think this harms Reading because they had a lot of players coming back from injury who they needed to get minutes into. And they've obviously not played by the FA Cup tie, where they decided to play their under-23 team to rest the players for the league game. And then the league game didn't take place. So they've now got these players who came back against Huddersfield, who then haven't played for 2.5 weeks. So I'm a little bit worried how that's going to be in terms of rustiness for their star players. However, Coventry on the road have been largely very poor this season. They're one of 6 teams not to make it into double figures for points on the road. Reading at home have been one of the better sides this season, but they never draw at home. They're the only side who haven't drawn a home game this year, so they have to win or lose. And as a result, I've just got a sneaky feeling because of the match sharpness that Coventry are going to nick this. And I don't know why I'm saying that Coventry to keep winning because I had them to go down, but they're going to nick this one again. I'm going to go for 2-1. 2-1 to Coventry, but I think it'll be a good game.
Charlie?
I can definitely see where he's coming from because I know I completely agree. Reading at home have been better, but there was that one result against Birmingham. Lost 2-1, and I know that you can talk about Birmingham a bit later on, and they've never really been any form, and they still managed to lose at home to them. And like you say, I think Reading is such a team who rely on momentum, and they had that. You saw that earlier on in the season. I think it was in international break that maybe didn't help them that much. But, when they had that run of games quite thick and fast, they obviously were up near the top of the table. So I agree with where he's coming from, but then Coventry away from home have been really, really disastrous. Oh, I don't know. This is 2 tough games to start with. I can't go for 2-1 alls. 4-goal thriller, 2 each.
Well, one of us is going to guarantee a point. I think Reading will win. I think obviously Matey's coming back. Lucas João's coming back. The last league game they had, Lucas João came on and scored 2 goals. So that's absolutely vital for them to get the points again, to get back into that playoff hunt again. Coventry, on the other hand, obviously, it's hard to judge because obviously they haven't played as well. And with Reading. So it's literally a shot in the dark. But I'm going to go for Reading to win 2-0. Up next at Ewood Park, it's Blackburn Rovers versus Swansea City. Charlie, are you going to go for 2-0 Swansea again?
No, I should do because it seems to be the only time I get 3 points. However, Blackburn, even when they've lost, they always seem to score. Last 6 games at home, they've scored, albeit they lost 2 of them. And then they've drawn the last 2-1 all. So I'm not going for I'm not going for a draw in every single game, but there is a little bit of that sticking in the back of my mind. But Swansea, they're picking up points, they're not doing it in a flamboyant way. I'm not talking about the kit. That's probably the only flamboyant part of Swansea at the minute. But I think Swansea will win it. I'm going to go for my old favourite of 2 goals for Swansea. But this time, Blackburn going to get one back because I think they're just too potent going forward. But still worry about Blackburn defensively because they do seem to, as good as they are going forward, they're always conceding. So 2-1 Swansea City. Yeah,
that's exactly what I've gone for, to be honest. It's either 2-0 or 2-1 to Swansea. Because I watched Swansea yesterday against Barnsley. And they got their goals, and then obviously they shut up shot, and then defensively they were absolutely sound. I think Steve Cooper's got that in him this season. They've been absolutely defensively stout. Obviously now second in the table. Blackburn, on the other hand, we've moaned about Blackburn all season of like good performance, bad performance, good performance, bad performance. And I think Tony Mowbray even said, I don't think they were that good yesterday against a strong Stoke side. But I'm going to go for Swansea to edge it 2-1. Coat.
Well, this is possibly a very risky thing. I did have the exact same thing as well.
Go for it.
I went for the same thing, which is Swansea would win 2-0, but Blackburn always score. That's my problem. Swansea have got the best defensive record in the Championship, so we've got to bear that in mind. I still think Blackburn will score at home, but I'm going to bank on Blackburn's defence being poorer as well. They've already let in 28 this season, so I'm going to go for Blackburn to let in 1 more as well, just to be different on the hope that it will pay off. 3-1 Swansea, but it's an away win for me.
Up next, the game of Sheffield Wednesday versus Wycombe is postponed because of COVID in the Wycombe ranks. So we move on to Rotherham versus Stoke. A rare away win, Codes, for Rotherham.
Yeah, it's a remarkable thing. To be fair, Derby have got the worst home record in the league, so we shouldn't read too much into it. But we have said all season, Rotherham are a better side at home. They've got a blank goal difference, 0 exactly. But then they're playing against another side who are in awful form in Stoke. I mean, in all competitions, I know Leicester and Tottenham are in there. They've not won in 6 games. They do love a 1-1 draw at the moment. And I think that's what I'm going to go for. Rotherham have scored 1 goal in each of their last 4. Stoke have drawn 2 of their last 3 league games 1-1. So it's the safest bet, 1-1.
Charlie?
Yeah, I agree. Rotherham at home are a lot better. I mean, obviously, they drew 2 with Bournemouth at one point as well. When Bournemouth was slightly better form a few games ago. So, but Stoke are all over the shop. I know I joke about the whole Michael O'Neill 1-0 sort of thing, but it's really going a bit awry for them. See, I know what happened. I'm going to go for a Rotherham win. I think Rotherham will sneak it. But I know for a fact, Stoke, if I say that, Stoke will probably win 1-0. But I'm gonna have to go with what I sort of believe. So I think Rotherham are stronger at home. Stoke don't seem to be doing anything. I mean, even if you look at the transfer work, apart from, I'm not touching about that subject again, but Reece Norton and Davis haven't really done anything else to address maybe the issues that they are having at the minute. So for me, it's going to be a bit more of the same. So now what score? I mean, Rotherham don't score loads and 1-0 Rotherham, 1-0. And anti-Stoke result for Stoke.
We must be drinking the wrong thing because I've actually gone for Stoke win. I know. Incredible.
I think they win that. I'm not coming back. That'll piss me off so much.
Incredible. Yeah, Rotherham, obviously, excellent win. I don't care if it's against teams in the relegation area as well as you, but they needed to pick up 3 points to close the gap, and they've got 2 games in hand over the teams around them. That could be real confidence boost as well. Stoke, on the other hand, it's just been so lethargic, in my opinion, in the last few games, and I don't expect a lot to happen, but I think they'll just sneak this one 2-1. Up next at Vicarage Road, it is Watford versus Barnsley. Watford were gifted a goal. Barnsley gifted Swansea a goal. So do you think there'll be more defensive howlers in this game, Coach?
I don't know if there'll be more defensive howlers, but what I can definitely assure you is both teams are going to repeat the result they had at the weekend. Watford are going to win 2-0 at home because they always win 1 or 2-0 at home. Barnsley are going to lose on the road because Barnsley aren't great on the road. So Watford won 2-0 at the weekend. Barnsley lost 2-0. And the same is going to happen. 2-0 to Watford.
This is probably one I'm going to go for a while. Totally outlandish in this one. Yeah, Watford obviously got the 3 points. Obviously, one was an absolute gift. My worry is Barnsley being sloppy lately, conceding really sloppy goals. So I'm going to go for an expansive game. I'm going to go for a 2-2. Charlie?
I don't know. I know you come from, but Watford only letting 2 goals in the last 6 at home. How much do you read into? I mean, Huddersfield have been in a woeful away form. We'll talk about that another time. But I think Watford will win. I think it won't be as tight. I think it'll be tighter, than what it was at the weekekend. I mean, Barnsley did put up a good fight against Norwich and they lost 1-0. So I'm going to go for a repeat of that, albeit that was nearly 15 days ago now, 2 weeks ago, they lost 1-0 to Norwich, but still. So I'm going to go for a repeat of that. I think Watford are doing well. I think they're too strong at home, but I don't think they're necessarily still free-flowing and they're going to be goals galore. But I think they'll have too much for Barnsley. So 1-0, no gifts though. It'll be a well-worked goal.
Up next on Wednesday, it is Norwich City versus Bristol City at Carrow Road. Charlie, the gap between first place Norwich and third place Bournemouth is now 8 points. Do you see that expanded?
Oh yeah, definitely. Especially with Norwich at home. I mean, Norwich at home in the last 5 have drawn 1-4, and that one they drew was against QPR, which we spoke about. Another day that could have been 4 or 5. So I think I'm not going to use the word. I nearly said it, but I think it should be a fairly straight home win. It's just what score you go for. The thing is, and the reason this is difficult, not because I think that Norwich won't win, it's what score, because Bristol City can just, some weeks they're brilliant, other weeks they're woeful. Away from home, they're ninth in the form table, but they've lost the last 3 away from home by at least 2 goals. 3-0 Norwich, no goals for Bristol City.
Yeah, I'm going to go for a Norwich win. As I've been saying for the last few weeks, they're just grinding out results. Nothing spectacular, but just grinding out results. And they did that 2 seasons ago, grinding out results, and built a lead. Had a load of players out, apparently. Team Privy didn't play as well. Obviously, there's a bit of COVID in their ranks as well. So I still think Norwich should be too strong, despite a good win for Bristol City at the weekend against a hapless Preston. I'm going to go for 2-0 to Norwich. Codes.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on something there. I'll be quite surprised if this game goes ahead in midweek, to be honest with you. But based on the current evidence, Norwich haven't been winning many games heavily. They've been convincing. I mean, at home, they've won 7 games. They've got a +7 goal difference. That tells you exactly what they're doing this season. Bristol City, they're starting to turn as well. They're one of those who started the season good on the road. They're now winning their home games and losing their away games. So perhaps they're another one of those unpredictable sides coming through now. So away from home, I'm going to go for Norwich to win it. I think it will be tighter. Bristol City are always involved in 2-1s. Norwich won their last game 2-1. I'll stick with 2-1 to Norwich.
Up next to the Brentford Community Stadium, if this goes ahead, Brentford versus Luton Town. Codes, Luton, obviously we said it would be a banker for Bournemouth. And Luton proved us wrong again.
Well, they did, but let's be honest. If that had been 11v11, I don't think Luton would have won it. I think that's a fair statement. They might have still got a draw because Bournemouth weren't great, but they wouldn't have won the match. I'm hoping the QPR game at home last week was just a one-off. But generally, we've been better at home than on the road recently. And this Bournemouth game's just thrown a spanner in the works. So I'm going to try not to judge it on that, just because it was against 10 men for the majority. Brentford, they've not got one of the best home records in the league. They've won 5, drawn 5, so they're not going to lose it. But I think there's a big risk this could be a draw. And as a result, because I don't know any better and because I'm optimistic for Luton this time, I'm going to throw in the Championship's favourite scoreline of 1-1 because I can't see Luton getting more than 1.
Well, let's be honest, Luton have not scored more than one goal away from home. All their away victories this season have been 1-0 to Luton Town. Yeah, Brentford, well, who's fit? So it could be the same thing with Luton. Obviously, Luton had the other week where they've been out and had a poor game. It could be a Luton win. But as I keep predicting Luton to win, they don't win. But when I predict Luton to lose, they win. So I'm going to go for
take one for the team.
I know that's what I'm doing. I know. So I'm going to go for Brentford to win 2-1.
Thank you.
Charlie.
I'm going to have to be a bit bolder because it didn't pay off. I toyed with a Luton win against Bournemouth. Obviously, didn't know about the 10 men. I agree with you, and I'm not just saying this because of what you lads have spoken about. How fit are Brentford going to be? What sort of state are they going to be in? And I mentioned this, about Nathan Jones. He's a good tactician, and against these sorts of teams, actually, he does come up against these sort of bigger sides. And I just think that actually, there's no pressure. They've got nothing to lose. A win puts Luton, I think, potentially, obviously, goal difference aside, and it'll be a massive swing, but just outside the playoffs. So, they're quietly creeping up there, albeit somewhat erratic between home and away. So you mentioned about the 1 goal, and I think I'm going to go for that 1 goal just on the basis that Brentford are probably slightly unfit, lacking a little bit of match sharpness, but I think that'll play into Luton's hands. 1-0 Luton Town.
No one going for 7-0 Brentford, no?
Up next to the Cardiff City Stadium, it is Cardiff versus Queen's Park Rangers. Cardiff lost to the leaders 2-1 to obviously Norwich City. Queen's Park Rangers didn't play. Charlie, Cardiff, Neil Harris said he was quite proud of his players despite losing 2-1.
Well, if I'm honest, if you look at the highlights and the stats and stuff, up to the sending off, I'm not saying they'd beaten Norwich, but they were in the game. They were putting up a good fight. They just scored, I think, maybe 7 or 8 minutes before the sending off. Yeah. And I think they were just starting to put Norwich on the back foot a bit. So it was all positives. And then, you can talk about senders off. I mean, it was a bit of a silly one, but it obviously changed the game. And that last 20 minutes then, was very difficult against the strong Norwich side of 10 men. So I think there's positives to come out of it. It's just what do you do at QPR? And I know we say that every week, but I honestly don't know. And I know I like to go by like form and numbers and stuff like that, but I genuinely don't know QPR anymore. I'm going to have to just pluck a score out because they could potentially, Cardiff's home form hasn't been great. Yeah, do you know what? QPR, 2-1 away win. Stuff it. There we go. After everything I've just said.
Right.
It's just quite a hard one for me because no matter what you say about Cardiff's performance being improved at the weekend, they've still lost 5 straight games in all competitions. You can't change that fact. QPR were on a huge winless run themselves until they came to Kenilworth Road. So what I'm sort of banking on here is Cardiff, despite, in terms of home record, is 17th best in the league, but they're the joint 3rd highest scorers at home. QPR, bar 2 of the other teams in the bottom half of the away form record, have got the most goals scored. So I'm going to go for it to be a thrilling draw. QPR have drawn 5 on the road. Cardiff at home have been hit, miss and in between. So I'm going to go for 2-2, an absolute thriller and defensive howlers galore.
2 teams not in good form despite QPR winning last game. It all makes sense for it to be the Championship's favourite scoreline of 1-1. Up next at the John Smith Stadium, it is Huddersfield Town versus Millwall. Millwall, despite a good point against Bournemouth, probably could have got something at that game. Utterly hopeless against Nottingham Forest, coach.
Yeah, it wasn't a great performance, but Charlie's been saying this for months. I went about a month too early on it, and now he's got on the train just as it started happening. What I would say about that Millwall game, they had 14 shots. They only had 1 less on target. They had over half the possession. It wasn't a poor performance, generally. It was just silly mistakes at the back. It was a bit strange, because particularly from a Gary Rowett team, you just don't expect that at all. But Millwall have just been a bit of hit and miss all season. It's been a weird one for them. At home, we know Huddersfield are very strong, but they did lose the last home game against Reading, lost at home in the Cup the week after. So I don't know. I'm sort of teetering with a draw here, despite Huddersfield only drawing 1 home game all season. Millwall on the road, 4-4-4. It's so hard to predict. But I'm going to go for 1-0 because you two are going to go for a home win.
Well, I had 1-1 down. No, I'm joking. I did have a Huddersfield win, to be honest. Obviously, yeah, Huddersfield, they lost 2-0. It wasn't the greatest game. Millwall, on the other hand, yeah, they've been poor. They've been poor for a while. And I don't know what they can do to turn around. I don't know. But Millwall do tend to have a stronger second half of the season. They do tend to have a cup run as well. But Huddersfield, yeah, I'm going to tip them to go 2-1, win 2-1. They are too strong at home, in my opinion. Charlie? I
was going to go for 2-1, but I'm going to go for 2-0 Huddersfield. I'm going to tell you for why. Huddersfield's last 5 games at home, obviously. They lost to Reading, but before that, beat Blackburn 2-1, beat Watford 2-0, beat Sheffield Wednesday 2-0, beat QPR 2-0. So it has to be 2-0. And, I mean, Millwall, they did half league goals away from home. So, I know they managed to beat Bristol City, but letting 3 against Forest, obviously, letting 3 against Borough, another 2 against Blackburn. So defensively, I know what you're saying about them. Maybe performance wasn't too bad, but there is issues there at the back. Everything points towards a 2-0 Huddersfield win, but I can guarantee it won't be. But I'm going to go for 2-0 Huddersfield.
Up next to the City Ground is Nottingham Forest versus Middlesbrough. Charlie, not only did Nottingham Forest win, but they scored 3 goals.
Well, the thing is, I've gone 1-0 Forest every week. And Dan made the joke about the old Arsenal song, didn't he? 1-0 Forest and all of that. But I don't think... I mean, we did say it has to be a time when it all clicks up front. And obviously, Sammy Amiobi yesterday seemed to show up. I don't know if they'll do that 2 games running. And as we just sort of alluded to, Millwall away from home do seem to ship goals. So how much do you read into that? But then Borough away from home haven't been great. I've got to go for a Forest win. I think, and I'm not just saying that because of the previous weeks. Genuinely, I think everything seems to be pointing towards that. Forest are on the up. Borough away from home haven't been strong at all. I'm going to split the difference. 2-0 this time. 2-0 Forest.
Coates?
Well, I'll have Charlie's old score then. It's 1-0 for me because Borough on the road. I know they beat Wickham and I know they beat Birmingham heavily, but then they lost in the FA Cup. They lost away at Sheffield Wednesday in between. And then at home to Birmingham, they were shocking. I don't know where that came from. Birmingham were in the form of their lives and I just don't understand. But Forest, I feel like this is the time. We said Houghton would take them up the table eventually and get them up near that playoff places. And I've got a feeling it might be the time now. A big second half of the season for them. Knockout staying for the year. They've got Sammy Amiobi scoring goals, as we mentioned now. So I'm going to go for 1-0 because Borough don't concede a huge amount, but a Forest win again for me. The roll is on.
Not for me, eh? And I like Chris Hughton, I really do, but it's against Neil Warnock. Neil Warnock will do anything to get back into winning ways because that performance was so bad against a really poor Birmingham City side as well at home. You can't justify that. So I expect them to bounce back, not to win the game. I expect it to be a point. But I don't know why I've written down 2-2. And I'm going to sit with 2-2. And the final game, it is definitely not going to be the game of the day. It is Birmingham City versus Preston North End. Charlie, where did that performance from Birmingham come from?
I don't know. I had them down as just on a dropping like a stone, weren't they? I don't know. It's hard to judge because were Birmingham better or were Borough that bad? I don't know. But then they're playing against Preston, who again are so erratic. 1-2 and then lost 3 in the last 5 away games. So, but they lost to Luton quite heavily 3-0. But then they beat Bournemouth away from home. So I don't know where you go with that. Honestly, for me, probably one of the toughest ones to call. Prior to Saturday, I'd have obviously said Preston away win. But I'm going to bank on just Borough being so woeful that papering over the cracks for Birmingham. I'm going to go for a Preston away win. I'm going to go for a heavy one because when they do something, if they click well. 3-0 Preston.
Coates?
Well, Birmingham, in the last 6 games, they've scored in 2 of them. They were both against Middlesbrough. Other than that, they've not scored a goal. But they've got the worst home record in the Championship, worst goals conceded record at home in the Championship, and the second worst record overall. Preston, despite being one of the best away teams in the league overall, have still managed to let in 20 goals, which is the 3rd most. So Birmingham will get their obligatory goal in this game, but Preston, I agree with Charlie, will get a few. And because Birmingham have thrown it in a few times, I'm going to go for 4. So Birmingham 1, Preston 4 for me.
Am I the only one that's gone, right, this game's going to be utterly rubbish, it's going to be a draw?
This is the week I go top, Craig.
I don't think it'll be a high-scoring game. I really don't. I know Preston can score goals, but I don't know. I think this will be probably the worst game of the midweek. So I'm going to stick with the Championship's favourite scoreline. I'm going to go for 1-1. And let's have a quick recap of what we guessed with Matchday 25. To be honest, not a lot in it, to be fair. The wild ones come at the right at the end with a 4-1 and a 3-0 Preston wins for Charlie and Cody, respectively. And those are predictions for Matchday 25. Do you agree with us? Do you disagree with us? Let us know in the comment section down there and give us your opinions for this Matchday. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the Honest Football Podcast, and you can follow us on Twitter at Honest Football 3. We'll see you next time.